Welcome to this explainer. I was digging through Chapter 26 of the MQL5 Reference Guide the other day, and it hit me. We can make this incredibly fascinating leap from just standard trading to actual algorithmic artistry. Today, we're looking at how to completely transform your standard MetaTrader 5 chart into a dynamic algorithmic canvas using MQL5 Object Functions. If you've ever wanted your code to literally speak visually, you are in exactly the right place.
Seriously, just imagine it for a second. What if your charts could draw themselves? No more tedious trend lines, no more constantly redrawing support zones manually, and absolutely zero human error. Instead, your trading robot is just out there visualizing its own data in real time, instantly reacting to the market. That is exactly the power we're unlocking today.
So, here's our roadmap for today, the Object Lifecycle. We'll be hitting the algorithmic canvas, creating your first object, customizing object attributes, moving objects dynamically, and finally, deleting and memory management.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the algorithmic canvas. Before we can actually start painting with our code, we got to understand the environment we're working in. Look at the setup. What's really fascinating here is what you're not seeing, human intervention. Notice that perfectly crisp horizontal line sitting exactly at the 1.30550 price level? Yeah, that wasn't dragged and dropped by a trader. That was placed with absolute mathematical precision by an MQL5 script. This right here is our goal. Total visual control completely driven by code.
Now, to place literally any object, MQL5 needs to know the exact where and when. And on a chart, that translates to your time and price coordinates. Because the chart is just a strict grid, this opens up some incredible technical analysis capabilities. For example, using a function like ObjectGetValueByTime, your code can calculate exactly what price a dynamic trend line was sitting at during a specific historical hour. Or, conversely, you could use ObjectGetTimeByValue to find the exact time a specific price level was intersected by an object. It's just a wildly powerful way to interact with your data.
Okay, moving right along to Section 2, creating your first object.
Now that we know our canvas, it's time for that first brushstroke. While looking at the documentation, I found this brilliant mental model. Every single dynamic MQL5 object goes through a simple four-step object lifecycle: create, customize, move, and delete. Honestly, understanding this lifecycle is the key to building literally any visual tool you can imagine.
Step 1, obviously, is creation. The ObjectCreate function is what breathes life into your object. But it needs a few very specific instructions from you. It needs the chart ID, which is usually just 0 for the main chart. It needs a completely unique name to act as its identifier. It needs the object type, which we'll look at in just a second. It requires the subwindow index, and most importantly, it needs that initial anchor point, the time and price. Once this single line of code runs, boom, your object officially exists.
So, you might be wondering, what exactly can we create? Well, the enum objective enumeration is basically your ultimate toolbox, and it's packed with options. You can draw simple OBJ line horizontal lines for your support and resistance, OBJ trend lines for your dynamic channels, OBJ rectangle shapes to highlight those messy consolidation zones, or even OBJ arrow types to pinpoint exact buy and sell signals. The terminal literally gives you programmatic access to every single tool a manual trader has, and you don't even have to touch your mouse.
Which brings us to Section 3, customizing object attributes.
So our object is on the screen, but, well, it's looking a little basic right now. Let's give it some personality. The crucial point here is knowing how to talk to the object to change its look. MQL5 uses three main functions based on the specific data type you're changing. You're going to use ObjectSetInteger for whole numbers. So this includes things like colors, Boolean flags for true or false properties, or your line thickness. Then you use ObjectSetDouble for floating point values, like tweaking a super precise price level. And finally, you use ObjectSetString when you want to assign text, like slapping a label on a button or an indicator line. Once you grasp these three data types, the whole programming logic just clicks instantly.
Check out this triangle as a perfect example. By using ObjectSetInteger, the developer didn't just tweak the border color, they actually applied the OBJPROP fill property. By setting that to true, they turned a basic wireframe into a clear, shaded visual zone right on the chart. It immediately tells the viewer, hey, pay attention to this area, without cluttering up the screen with a bunch of text.
Now, if you're anything like me, you absolutely hate cluttered charts. Professional algorithmic developers do too. And that's exactly where visibility flags come in. Using ObjectSetInteger with the OBJ_prop_timeframes property, you can control exactly when an object shows up. Got a massive macro trend line? Make it only visible on the OBJ_period_H1 in daily charts. Got a quick scalping signal? Restrict it exclusively to the 15-minute chart. This keeps your interface incredibly clean and super focused.
Oh, and here's a really fun realization when you start digging into all this customization. Take a look at these custom buy and sell signals. By setting specific integer codes, specifically wingdings font characters, using the OBJ_prop_arrow code property, you can instantly turn a boring generic marker into a thumbs up, a bright red arrow, or a star. It's such a great way to translate complex background logic into immediate visual feedback.
All right, let's keep the momentum going with Section 4, Moving Objects Dynamically.
Because honestly, a static chart is fine, but dynamic animation is where automation truly shines. This right here is the fundamental difference between a manual trader and an algorithmic trader. Static objects are placed once and left behind in the dust as the market moves on. But dynamic objects, they are continuously updated via your code. They can track moving targets like a trailing stop loss, they can chase the live bid price, or they can even adjust their own angles the second new ticks arrive in the market.
So how do we actually achieve this dynamism? We use the object move function. Now, instead of creating a brand new object every single tick, which trust me would totally crash your terminal, you simply grab the existing object by its name, specify which anchor point you want to move, and feed it fresh, time current, or big coordinates. And just like that, it seamlessly snaps to the new location. Just notice this giant blue stop object for a second. Imagine using Object Move to make that thing hover exactly 10 pips above the live candle during a highly volatile news event. It's visually striking, it's impossible to ignore, and the best part, it's entirely data-driven.
And that brings us to our final stage, Section 5, Deleting and Memory Management. We've created, styled, and moved our objects. Now we got to talk about cleaning up. Here is a massive pro tip for your coding journey. A truly professional, automated system doesn't leave a mess behind. Once an object has finally served its purpose, you can manage your groups of objects using ObjectStotal, and it is 100% your responsibility to call functions like ObjectDelete. This removes unneeded visual objects, frees up precious terminal memory, and ensures your workspace remains a sharp tool for clarity, not a chaotic mess of confusion.
Now, the documentation highlights a really crucial detail here that trips up a lot of people. When you send commands to create, set, or move an object, they are actually just put into a queue in the background. To see those changes instantly, you must use the chart redraw function to forcefully update the graphical objects. It is the absolute final command that forces the screen to immediately paint all of your real-time algorithmic updates. So there we have it, the finished lifecycle. Create the object to give it life. Customize it with your integers, doubles, and strings to give it real meaning. Move it dynamically to make it highly responsive. And finally, delete it to keep your whole system running efficiently. These 4 simple steps give you absolute programmatic control over your visual trading environment. I want to leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought. Great algorithmic traders don't just calculate data in the dark. They build visual tools that translate complex math into actionable human insights. You literally have the MQL5 object functions at your fingertips now. So what complex logic are you going to bring to life on your chart today? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. And hey, happy coding.